Hello everyone, I am Takahiro Endo of Osaka Prefecture University. First, I would like to thank all the staff who organized this conference. Today, I am going to talk about groundwater quality management with an example of Hadano City, Kanagawa Prefecture, Japan. This is outline of my presentation. First, I would like to introduce Hadano City. And next, I will refer to characteristics of groundwater pollution. And third, I will mention how Hadano City coped with groundwater pollution. And in my conclusion, I will refer to some policy implications or lessons. This list shows representative soil and groundwater contamination in Japan, and among them, I will focus on Hadano case. The groundwater pollution was caused by volatile organic compounds (VOCs), and it took place late 1980s. And the Hadano case is very important because for two reasons. The first, VOC contamination has been the main trigger that promotes groundwater pollution control in Japan since late 1980s. And before Hadano contamination, there was no law or no legislation in Japan which deal with purification of contaminated groundwater. So Hadano case is the pioneering case that dealt with groundwater purification. And after that, the national government studied Hadano case, and they modified Water Pollution Control Act. This is a map of Japan, and we are in Kyoto, heated by the Gion Festival. And Hadano is located at the eastern part of Japan. And this picture, the Hadano city is very rich in groundwater resources, and we can find many artesian wells and springs in the city. And this picture shows a Kobo spring, a representative spring in Hadano city. Kobo is the name of the ancient priest, monk, and it is said he traveled all along Japan and built a dam and developed the groundwater resources. And it is said this artesian well was found by Kobo priest. And annual precipitation is about 1,700 millimeter per year, and population is about 0.60 million as of 2014. And about 70% of drinking water used in the city comes from groundwater. So Hadano city is a groundwater dependent city. And this is a map of Hadano city. From mountainous area, some rivers flows, and they merges around here. And this area is groundwater discharge area, and it is also a residential area. And in 1960s, a lot of farms and factories came to this place, partly due to groundwater richness. And at the time, there was no waterworks around here, developed waterworks around here. So those farms pumped up a huge amount of groundwater. And it resulted in decline of groundwater table. So the city government began artificial groundwater recharge activities from 1973. So during 1960s and 1970s, the groundwater issues in Hadano city was about a quantity problem. But about 15 years later, one commercial magazine disclosed that Kobo Spring, you saw the picture, Kobo Spring was heavily contaminated by tetrachloroethylene. And city government was very surprised at the news. and they conducted a citywide survey of contamination situation. And they found this area was severely contaminated. And this, here are some pictures. This is groundwater research activities using by paddy fields. And this is Mizunashi River, and this is a Kobo Spring. And in 1989, a magazine disclosed the water of this Kobo Spring was severely contaminated by tetrachlorohexane. And factories and farms in Hadano City, there are many automobile parts factories in this area. And they use oil to cut steel. And factory owners want to wash out the oil before they send their products to market. And for purification or for resolving oil, they use a huge amount of VOCs. But nobody knew at the time the cancer risk of volatile organic compounds. So they failed to handle them very carefully. So they just happened to infiltrate the VOCs into the soil, and those infiltrated VOCs moves and spreads by groundwater flow. And groundwater pollution has unique characteristics from social science point of view. That is, groundwater pollution is a stock pollution. That is totally different from river pollution. The characteristics of stock pollutions impose 4 big questions to officer of the Hadano city government. The first one goes like this. Please imagine the following situation. In 1960, one factory came to this place and began its operation and began its pollution. And then, unfortunately, this factory went bankrupt in year of 2000. And 15 years later, this area is reclaimed as a residential area. And those who live in this area happen to find the soil and groundwater is contaminated by VOCs. In that case, who is responsible for removing contamination? Because polluter does not exist anymore. That's a big question. The second question is about groundwater contamination out of factory sites. We can accept an idea that groundwater contamination within the factory site should be removed by the factory. It's a responsibility. But how about contamination out of factory sites? It's mingled and mixed. And who should care about this? This is the second problem the officer of the Hadano city government faced. And third one is still very complex. Please imagine the following situation. One factory came to Hadano city in 1960s, and they began its operation and started pollution. And 2010, 50 years later, Hadano city government or national government enacted new law to prohibit VOC infiltration. And if the factory still continues to infiltrate the VOCs, they will be punished because it's against the law. But how about activities? How about the contamination that was caused by the past activities? The third question the Hadano city government officer faced was whether government enforce regulation retroactively and order factory to remove the surviving contamination. In other words, the question is about whether the new law of 2010 has its effect not only on future activities but also on the past activities. That's very severe, complex situation. And fourth question is criteria. At that time, there was no criteria of clean groundwater. So the Hadano city governmental officer had to set up a criteria which divides polluted groundwater and pure groundwater. And complete removal of VOCs does not always make economic sense because that's too costly. So how clean is enough is the fourth question. And unfortunately, I do not have time to explain the local ordinance in detail, but the Hadano city's government enacted local ordinance in 1994 and to answer the 4 questions I mentioned before. And in the process, they really studied very hard on the Superfund Act of the United States and import a part of essence idea to the Hadano city. So about responsibility for removing contamination, Hadano city hired the polluter pays principle, plus in addition, and in case the polluter was not found, the city government, city mayor could step in and purify groundwater instead of the polluter. That's what we call proxy execution. And about contamination out of factory sites, they created groundwater purification fund. And third, they introduced retroaction system. And fourth, they used drinking water standard as the standard of groundwater quality. So this is a purification process within the factory sites. First, city government conducted very basic research. And when the city government found that groundwater quality within the factory sites exceeded the environmental standard, they ordered the farm owner to make a full research. And the polluter includes current VOC users and past VOC users. And those polluters are required to submit a purification plan and implement the plan. And after finishing the purification activities, they go back to the city mayor, and the city mayor checked groundwater quality, and if the quality satisfies the environmental standard, they can stop the purification activities. But in case the polluter disappears, the city mayor can step in and purify the groundwater instead of the polluter. And if the city mayor found the polluter later, he could charge the cost of purification to the polluter. And about contamination out of a factory site, they created groundwater purification fund. This bar graph shows revenue of groundwater purification fund, and this line shows expenditure. So this graph shows the Hadano city first collected a huge amount of money, and they spent gradually to purify groundwater. And this is the result. This is the graph of the tetrachloroethylene concentration at Phobos screen. And in 1989, here, the contamination was disclosed. And it took 10 years for the city government to clean up the groundwater quality, but they succeeded. So in my conclusion, I would like to mention some policy lessons. The first, coping with groundwater contamination is a typical interdisciplinary problem. The city government needs to knowledge of hydrology or soil condition and groundwater quality and the law and so on. And Hadano case is a good example by which we can consider some institutional or legal problems governmental officers have to tackle with groundwater pollution. The first one is the potential responsible parties. The second one is contamination out of land ownerships and the problem of retroactive regulation and criteria. And the Hadano case is a good example by which we can think of a hybrid approach against contamination problem. Thank you very much for your attention.